as we look to improve Memphis overall, it has to be grounded in how you're going to help elevate the status of our families. And when I say elevate the status, I mean grow their income, provide more opportunities, help them overcome the hurdles that have held them back for years.
Welcome to Pathbreakers, a podcast from the Kresge Foundation. This season, we're asking, who has the power to change a city?
We're talking with people who are reshaping the way things work and getting into how they make that happen.
And we're looking at 4 cities in particular where Kresge does a lot of work: Memphis, New Orleans, Fresno, and of course our home city, Detroit, Michigan.
In each of these places, we're going to start at City Hall and talk with the mayor. Then we'll head out into the community and talk with some of the people Kresge calls pathbreakers, people making big changes in unconventional ways.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy Pearson. I work on the communications team here at the Kresge Foundation.
And I'm Tracy's co-host, Jamie Bennett. I work at the intersection of arts, culture, and equitable community development.
So here we are at the beginning of our Memphis City series.
That's right. In our first 4 episodes, we explored Detroit. We talked with Mayor Sheffield and 3 Detroit pathbreakers. And for the next 4 episodes, we're heading south down I-57 to Memphis, Tennessee.
Memphis, like Detroit, is also one of Kresge's focus cities, a place where we invest in a wide array of social change work, including work that supports generational well-being and family stability. As a native Detroiter, I often think of Memphis and Detroit a bit like sister cities. Aside from both being beautiful cities on a riverfront and the home to some incredible American music, they are also cities with a deep civil rights history and a proud, predominantly Black population. On the other side of the coin, though, as we see way too often in communities of color, both cities have also been subject to decades of systemic disinvestment, leaving longtime residents and families looking for new paths forward and new ways to build healthy, happy, stable lives in their city.
And that's really what we're focusing on for our Memphis episodes. All season, we've been asking who has the power to shape their city. And in Memphis, we're specifically asking what happens when you shape that city to support families across generations.
As we did in Detroit, we're going to start the conversation with the person who you could say runs the household of the city, the mayor. And in Memphis, that is Mayor Paul Young.
That's right. Mayor Young was born and raised in Memphis and has a background in urban planning and city government. Prior to being elected, Mayor Young was the president and CEO of the Downtown Memphis Commission, where he led their work growing and promoting the city's core. But before that, he was the director of the city's Division of Housing and Community Development, where he managed housing initiatives and development programs across all of Memphis's neighborhoods. So he's looked at the city from many critical angles.
By the time he ran for office in 2023 and was sworn in by 2024, he knew very well that there are many facets to a city, and many facets required to create a city that supports family stability. Everything from employment opportunities and community safety to vibrant arts and culture and good housing. These are the issues he ran on and some of the things he's going to be talking about today.
For this mayoral episode, we turn the interview over to Kresge's president and CEO, Rip Rapson. Rip sat down with Mayor Young in the city's original public library right downtown on the banks of the Mississippi River.
All right, Rip, handing it over to you.
Mayor Young, what a pleasure it is to be here and to be in the great city of Memphis. It's a huge privilege to spend time with you. Maybe we could start just by telling us a little bit about where we're sitting in the Cossitt Library.
Yeah, we're sitting in the Cossitt Library. This is a library right in the heart of downtown. We began renovating this facility probably about 8 years ago. We wanted to see a different future for it. It was a library that was really underutilized. We're in the heart of downtown, really close to South Main, which is an arts district. Adjacent to this building, we're now building the Memphis Art Museum, which is going to be a large museum right in the heart of downtown. And so we wanted this to have a more creative feel. we want it to be a hub of creativity like we feel our city is in the first place. And so we think that this space represents that.
It's an incredible space. It's flexible. It can be used for all sorts of different kinds of events.
Right.
Even use it for filming.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think at Kresge first became engaged with the Cossitt as part of something called Reimagining the Civic Commons, which actually looked at the riverfront and the new museum and the library and the park as sort of a more democratized spaces, places where, exactly as you suggest, people can come in and just do everyday civic life. And it's really inspiring to watch.
Absolutely. I was involved back then during my time as the housing director, and the Civic Commons concept is one that's really important. We need spaces where people can gather, where people can come together. And this was probably 7, 8 years ago when we started that. But you look at where we are today, where people are spending so much time at home, in front of their computers or on their phones. We need spaces where people can come together, where they can learn from each other, where they can interact with each other. And that's why these civic common spaces are so important.
One of the things that I was reminded of just walking along the river this morning is how very similar in many ways the physical elements of Detroit and Memphis are. We both are on a river. We both have this gorgeous island in the middle of the river. We both have this rich cultural heritage of great music. We're both sort of pillars of the American Civil Rights Movement. We both have medical, on and on and on. So say a word for people who don't know Memphis about why Memphis is a special place.
Memphis is a very, very special place. We certainly have a lot in common with Detroit, but I think the thing that makes Memphis so special are the people. Like the people here are some of the best people. And I know everybody says that, but when you come and you actually experience it, the people that you interact with, you feel like you've known those people for years. And Memphis is a place where innovation has been a part of our story for as long as we've been around. If you look at FedEx, where we figured out how to get a package around the world in 24 hours. The first self-service grocery store, Piggly Wiggly, started right here.
Piggly Wiggly started in Memphis.
Started right here in Memphis. St. Jude, where we have doctors and researchers that are working to cure childhood cancer, headquartered right here, AutoZone, and the list goes on. The music, you all have Motown in Detroit. We have Stax right here in Memphis, and Beale Street, and the blues, and the civil rights history, the culture that's ingrained in this city. I always say that we can tell the story of civil rights in Memphis better than any place in the world, and that's a story and a lesson. Not just for American history, but for world history. And I think it's a significant place that I want more people to come and experience.
Well, and you have deep roots as a family here. Your mom and dad started a church here when you were a teenager. They built a congregation. You went on to be the head of the Memphis Downtown Commission, the head of Planning and Economic Development, Community Development. It's a great story for a young Memphian to look at your career and realize that there's a real future here for young people.
There's definitely a future here. I mean, I'm a Memphis story. I grew up here, born and raised. Family's been rooted. My dream job was to be the housing director, and God saw fit for that to happen in 2016. And I always tell people that the funny thing about God is He'll move the flag post just a little bit further. I had no ambitions on being mayor, but I've loved having the opportunity to be able to contribute to the city that's made me everything I am.
Well, and is it difficult to go from the head of planning and development to having to hold a much broader vision? I mean, when you're in some ways kind of a technical staffer, right? I mean, housing is complicated stuff. Community development is complicated stuff. Now all of a sudden you're thinking about kids and families and downtown revitalization and all of the other things. How do you grow into that sort of larger role?
I actually think it's pretty natural because as a city planner, which is my technical training, and someone that's worked in housing, I felt like it was my goal to be able to, my job and my duty to be able to translate the needs of the people when I go to planning meetings and charrettes and the things that they're telling me about blight in their neighborhood, dangers on their streets. my goal and my job is to translate all of that into policy, translate it into specific projects that are going to resolve the issues that they're dealing with. And so moving into this space was actually pretty natural when it comes to the work day to day. The politics of it is a whole different job in itself, but I've learned how to balance it by just being who I am. I've learned that the more you are yourself and you bring yourself to the role, the rest of the things kind of work themselves out.
Well, and I think the nation really had its eyes on Memphis and on you personally, immigration policy with safety policy, and you seem to have found a way to not capitulate, but also make sure that the relationships aren't broken, and that somehow you've been able to make sure that the governor is still on the side of Memphians, and that even the federal administration is. I mean, how do you do that? That's a complicated dance.
You know, what I tried to do is make sure that we're centering the people of Memphis. And when I drive down the streets of our community, when I talk to Memphians, particularly, 2 years ago when I came into office, 2023, the year before I became mayor, we had the highest number of homicides that we've ever had at 400.
Wow.
A significant number. It wasn't a room that I would go into that, whether it's East Memphis, which is kind of synonymous with more affluent, or South Memphis, which is less affluent. Everybody's talking about public safety. And so when we had all of these issues, we set a goal of reducing crime 10% year over year for 4 years so that we would get to a 40% reduction in crime. And so we were doing all of the things. By the time the task force and the federal administration came in, we had already reduced crime by 27%. And this was September of 2025. They started their work, and my goal was to make sure that they were integrating into the things that we were doing, that they didn't just come in and start their own effort. We incorporated them into our warrant squads, into our multi-agency gang unit, into our day-to-day patrols, to make sure that they were moving at the pace that we needed them to, and incorporating and not starting a new initiative. Yes, there were immigration concerns, because we made it very clear that immigration is not an issue in our community, and there was some of that was happening early on, but over time and through my advocacy and others, that even subsided. And so the focus now is on getting violent criminals off the streets, which is what I hear from residents all throughout our city. And where we are today, we've achieved that 40% reduction in crime that we expected over 4 years. We're now at a 42% reduction in crime in 2. And so it's due to the efforts of putting the people of Memphis first and trying to not focus so much on the politics. I'm a Democrat. Working within a red state with a Republican governor, a Republican legislature, and a Republican president. And it's my goal to make sure that they understand my perspective, that we have a relationship and can communicate, and most importantly, that I can still deliver for the people of our city.
Well, it's so important to sort of reinforce that mayors are fundamentally problem solvers. They're not ideologues. You can't afford to be. And so when I think about the crime issue, I think so often people characterize it as just simply putting more police officers on the street. That's important. But it also has to do with weaving a community fabric in a different way. Can you talk a little bit about how Memphis has come at issues of public safety sort of beyond policing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, our core strategy is law enforcement / suppression, as well as intervention and prevention. Like, we have this artificial debate in this country around, well, you got to focus on root causes. It's not law enforcement, or it's law enforcement. Lock them up and you don't worry about all of it. It's both and. We all know you have to do both. And so, the key is trying to find ways to support these organizations that are doing the important and critical work on the intervention and prevention. We have a number of, we formed our joint office of neighborhood safety and engagement to help provide grants and coordination amongst those agencies that are working in that space. We have a very strategic approach where Our police department does what we call a shooting review. Anytime there's a shooting incident that takes place in our neighborhoods, fatal or non-fatal, they go through and they talk about every single shooting, who are the people that they run with, who might retaliate. If there are specific names of people that may not be the suspects in the shooting, but may be potential targets for some type of response, we give those individuals to our neighborhood teams that actually go out and engage and talk to this individual, try and talk them off the ledge from going to shoot, or tell them to, get the services that they need to prevent them from being the shooter. Those are the types of strategies that are very intricate, but they're important for reducing violence. I've been looking at our numbers just from last year to this year, and we've seen 45% reduction in the number of people that have been shot in our community. And that's really, really important when we start talking about saving lives in our community. And what we know is the true way to turn the dial for our community is going to be opportunity. Yeah. And so our discussion has begun to pivot in the city. Remember, I said 2 years ago, public safety was the only thing we were talking about. Now what we're talking about is this goal that we've launched of 10,000 housing units to redevelop housing in the core of our city. We're talking about 5,000 workforce jobs, all of this by 2030, to provide opportunities for young people in our community. We have 3,000 young people that have summer jobs this summer as a result of the things that we're putting in place. 425 businesses stepped up to host these 3,000 young people. We're turning the dial on where we were and turning this into more opportunity for our young people, which is the way that we're going to reduce crime for good.
That's so interesting. I was working in the Minneapolis mayor's office in the 90s, and my mayor kept talking about kids and families and kids and family policy, and his colleagues just thought it was crazy. You fix the streets, you turn the lights on, you even do some of the hard infrastructure work with housing. But it seems to me sort of a signal theme out of your administration is trying to figure out how to improve families' economic and social mobility. That's a tough call for a mayor.
Yeah.
How are you coming at it? You talked about the housing, safety, those are all critical things. Are there other elements that you're trying to pull into the equation?
Well, it's really the whole safety net ecosystem. I think about projects where we've had tremendous success. One of them we had an opportunity to show you earlier, which was South City. What happened in that project, it was a Choice Neighborhoods redevelopment project where we had 420 units of housing that were the former barrack-style Barron project style development. We redeveloped those to beautiful structures, but the success of the project is not the structures, it's the people that were relocated from the facility. These were some of the hardest to house because they had so many other challenges that they were working with. They had been relocated from other developments all across the city, and they were there. And so what we put in place was a program with a group called Urban Strategies, where they worked with each individual family, and they worked with them whether they needed childcare, employment, education, transportation, whatever their needs were. They worked with those families. They held their hand to upgrade their status and where they were in life. And the success of their project was based on that principle. And I think that as we look to improve Memphis overall, it has to be grounded in how you're going to help elevate the status of our families. And when I say elevate the status, I mean grow their income, provide more opportunities, help them overcome the hurdles that have held them back for years. And when we get that type of success, all of the other things that we want will come.
And that's kind of a community all-in proposition, isn't it? I mean, you were saying before we went on camera that your mother still is involved in her church and has focused really on issues of mental health. Yeah. Well, that really comes out of a different part of civil society. Yeah. When you think about neighborhood block clubs and just sort of the informal connections of mutual support that go on every day in our communities, that's a little bit different. When you think of the educational system, which is complicated in every city in America. But I mean, it's all of these things coming together. And in some ways, you become, as the mayor, the one to sort of pull that vision together. I mean, it's really important to articulate the vision and to get everyone pulling in the same direction.
Absolutely. And I think that, as mayor, I see myself as the chief convener. I'm not responsible for all of the systems. The criminal justice system falls under county government and judges and district attorneys, and the state plays a big role there. The education system is county government and our school board. But I have to be the chief convener for our whole community, because the residents of our community don't care about our bureaucracy. And our bureaucracy shouldn't be their problem. We need to find a path to figure it out for them to get the results that they need. And so, my goal is to make sure that as mayor, I remove as many barriers as possible, that I bring as many people to the table so we can make decisions as quickly as possible so that outcomes can change.
Well, and a good mayor is someone who essentially distributes some of those responsibilities across the civic landscape, right?
Absolutely.
And it sounds like that you've done that. But a good mayor also has to build a really good team. We had a chance to spend some of this morning with your team, and you've really assembled an extraordinary team. How'd you do that?
Yeah, we have a great team, and a number of the people I've worked with in the past. I've seen their work, but I think the work that we're doing attracts people that want to get things done, and they reach out, they bring themselves for service, and they're ready to do the work each and every day. And it definitely takes a team, and it takes a team beyond individuals that work in government. We need them at every single level, whether it's our philanthropic partners, our private sector partners, our residents in the communities and our neighborhoods. We have a really, really big city. Our city is 300 plus square miles, and we have roughly 620,000 people. When you have such a large geography, it's no surprise that you sometimes have some challenges. But what we're trying to do is make sure that we're working strategically, that we're identifying the areas where we can begin to build those nodes of concentrated activity, so that when we make investment in those nodes, that we can grow from those nodes to expand and impact the areas around it. And I think that strategic approach is one that is working and is going to reap dividends for our city long term.
Also, as you were talking, I was thinking that in some ways this is sort of the perfect antidote to the cynicism about government. So many of the young people I speak with just have no time for government. But I think they tend to focus on the national politics and the national nonsense of any administration. But here you're actually going to work on things that affect people's daily lives. And the fact that you've been able to attract such a great group of people to your administration, that the community sees you guys in action, it seems to me is ultimately kind of the salvation of America, is that you can get things done if you just pull together at a local level around common purpose.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I really feel like this moment and this time is the time for cities, communities to really think local. For too long, I think we've relied on our states and federal government. That's nothing to slight them, but the power is going to happen locally. The change is going to happen locally, and we have to be drivers of the change. We can't wait on another level of government to tell us what our priorities should be. Like, even with some of these large programs like Hope 6 and Joyce Navy, like, a lot of those programs were designed with the outcome in mind. And some of them worked well, like the one that I talked about, because it just happened to match exactly what we needed in that moment in time. But I think we need to be establishing the types of programs that we want to get invested in from the feds and the state, and lay out the program for them so that they aren't telling us the solution. We're dictating a solution for them to invest in. And that's what we're trying to create locally.
One of the, just to switch just a little bit, but to stick with the theme, one of the things that I think is most powerful about Memphis is its extraordinary tradition of music.
Yeah.
Whether it's Beale Street, if it's got its kind, or you've got Stax, or Soulsville, or Sun Records. I mean, it's hard to understand the character of this city without understanding the importance, not just of music, but of art generally. Can your office be helpful to that, or you just kind of let them do their thing?
Oh, no. I mean, we definitely want to be helpful.
Yeah.
And what I have told many people is that we don't become the great city that we strive to be by just focusing on solving the problems. We become that great city by leaning into areas where we have natural strength, where we have a competitive edge. And if you go to a random church on a Sunday morning in Memphis, you're going to hear some of the most incredible music and singing that you've ever heard.
Almost as good as Detroit. Yeah.
I would say better, but we can save that argument. But and Detroit has the same thing. But there's talent at so many levels in our great city, and it's important for us to find more ways to amplify that. And so we formed our Office of Creative and Cultural Economy at the end of 2024. And the spirit of that formation was that, because when we first formed it, I thought we were going to call it the Office of Arts and Culture, because it was kind of the natural thing. But we called it the Office of Creative and Cultural Economy because we wanted people to understand that there's an economic impact to the arts. The arts actually helps to grow our economy. And if we are strategic and thoughtful about how to find more ways and to invest in the thing that we are best at, then it's going to grow the whole for everybody. And so through that office, we are working on ways to invest in the artists themselves, into the ecosystem to support the artists. We're supporting efforts to get housing for artists. All of those things are going to make our community more rich, and it's going to draw the people that we want. We want the artists that are from our city to be able to live, grow, and thrive here in our city and not have to move to one of the larger cities to support their life.
I just think the whole sweep of what you're trying to achieve in this part of downtown is ambitious and going to be catalytic. We talked earlier before the taping of the large projects that you want to sort of bring and solidify into downtown. But those in turn are going to depend on cultural activities, on walkability, on open space. I mean, those are all things that are going to help make these larger real estate projects tick.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's this concept of togetherness where bringing people from different backgrounds together in the same public spaces can help change outcomes for all of the people. And we are really leaning into that concept in our parks and our libraries with our programming that we're looking to bring to those spaces. We want to bring people from different backgrounds, people that would not have met but for this space being in existence. And what does that mean for their lives and life outcomes? We know that, in the past, there has been this segregation of people. And I don't just mean the policies in the South. I mean, just people naturally go to spaces where people are like them, people that look like them, who have the same economic backgrounds, who have the same thought processes, same political backgrounds. We want our spaces in the city of Memphis to bring people from all of those backgrounds into the same spaces, because we know that that's going to enrich their lives and enrich our city. And so, we're thinking about all of those things as we think about every single project. We want projects to take place in our downtown because it's our living room, but we're also thinking about our neighborhoods and our communities, because we know that if we have spaces in our neighborhood that have that same concept integrated inside of it, then we're going to see those opportunities just expand to that many more people.
Well, you ran the first time, on a sort of a platform of unity. And I remember reading about your campaign and saying, well, that's nice, but people are so divided. I mean, really, it's good political rhetoric. But I think what you just explained makes it way more than rhetoric, right? You really are creating these mechanisms for people to connect and to be mutually appreciative, mutually supportive, and ultimately kind of pull in the same direction. I mean, a city can't pull itself forward if they're splintered in 10 directions. So what grade would you give yourself on this one?
You mean on my term?
No, just on your ability to sort of create this sort of sense of unity.
I would say a B. I think we're doing a good job, but there's always room to get better. And I think that we're going to keep pushing to get better. I think that people are more alike than some of us would even like to believe. No matter what your background, we want the same basic things. We want our families to be safe. We want to be able to grow our economic opportunities. We want to be able to have fun, go out and have a good time in whatever way that is. And so I think the more we can galvanize around the things that we can unify on, the better our community. And I don't think that's just a Memphis lesson. I think that's a national lesson. At this moment in time where we can feel so divided as a country, I think we need to find things where we can have common alignment, where we can not fight, but we can support each other. And as mayor, that's the way that I try to lead. And you're not going to please everybody, and I have no disillusion that is ever going to be the case. But I do think that we can unify around certain things that will grow our community.
And so at the end of Mayor Young's second term, you will have not only accomplished that, but you will have taken this moment and seen it as an inflection, it sounds like, for Memphis. You talked earlier about that, about how this is such a critical time for the city to really come into its own in a way that is sort of right there, but just hasn't quite gelled. But so at the end of the second term,
you'll
be
be
able
the second
to
term. That's what I tell people. I want my legacy to be that we look back and we say that this was the moment. This was the moment when Memphis shifted forever. I want to see a headline that says Memphis is one of the nation's fastest growing cities with the most equity. And that's an important caveat that I want to have with it. I want to make sure that the people that were in our city, that have lived in our neighborhoods and in our communities during years when there wasn't as much economic activity, are going to be able to stay in those neighborhoods, and they're seeing the growth. They're going to see grocery stores and those day-to-day amenities that they want to have in their neighborhood. They're going to see those things come to fruition in the communities, and they're going to be able to live there because they will have grown their income enough to afford it, or we will have invested enough in housing affordability such that the rent or the mortgages are low enough for them to be able to afford it. It's really important for me that this community moves in a positive growth trajectory, and I want this to be the moment when we really start to realize that.
I suspect it will be exactly that. It's inspiring to watch. It's probably a good place to end. Thank you very much for your time,
Thank
Mayor.
you.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you.
It's been an honor.
Thank you so much to Mayor Young and Kresge President Rapson for joining us to kick off our Memphis City series. Next week, Jamie and I will be back at the host mic, and we'll be joined by the first of our 3 featured Memphis Pathbreakers. Each of these phenomenal people are leading projects and building systems for family stability in their communities and Memphis at large.
In our next episode, you're going to meet Marlon Foster, who spent nearly 30 years working in South Memphis, which is the neighborhood where he grew up. He's built an entire campus of community spaces and services that are helping families, not just through the education, economic development programs that you'd expect, but also through mental health, a farm, and even a community cafe.
Also coming up in our Memphis series, you'll meet Archie Willis and Alex Willis-Body, a father-daughter real estate development duo who do real estate in a decidedly non-traditional way, going all in on community-guided revitalization projects that most investors say will never pencil out.
And in our final Memphis episode, we will zoom up to the regional level and talk with Anna McQuiston, who brings together mayors and municipal governments across an entire 3-state Mid-South region to collaborate rather than compete for resources.
Like and subscribe to Pathbreakers on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform to hear what these Pathbreakers are up to and how they get it done.
Pathbreakers is produced by the Kresge Foundation. Founded in 1924 with a mission to promote human progress, Kresge today works to expand equity and opportunity in America's cities.
Learn about our grant-making and social investing work in Detroit, Memphis, New Orleans, Fresno, and cities across the U.S. at Kresge.org. To hear more stories from the Pathbreakers, be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Our host for this episode was Rip Rapson, President and CEO of the Kresge Foundation. Our producer, as always, is Juliet Heinley. Our managing editor is Krista Yankee. Krista gets huge help from her Kresge colleagues, Maria DiLorenzo, Kate McLaughlin, Jordan Duckins, and of course, my co-host, Tracy Pearson. The video interview with Mayor Young was shot on location at the Cossitt Library in Memphis, Tennessee by ISF Productions, and it was edited by Mark Marks and Carmel Flanagan. Our show art is by Alejandro Herrera, logo animation by Colin Likes, and our social media mastermind is David Carrig.
Special thanks on this episode to everyone at the Cossitt Library, to Kresge's American Cities program, and especially Chantel Rush-Tebby and Anand Sharma, and to the Human Services program, especially Dr. Raquel Hatter. Thank you for listening, and please stay tuned for more from Memphis.